This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History. I'm your host, Steve White. This Day in Sports History is a member of the Sports History Network, where you can find more podcasts and more info at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's September 28th, and on this day over the years of sports history, we had a player known for hitting the long ball, scoring a record number of touchdowns in a football game, a quarterback who lit up the scoreboard, and a guy who might have posted monster numbers in the NFL if not for a freak injury that he suffered on this day. All that plus a little non-sports fun fact about survival for you. Stick around, this is going to be fun and informative, I promise. So let's start with what happened on this day in 1951, when a guy best known for hitting a lot of home runs scored 5 touchdowns in a football game. Before Roger Maris was chasing and eclipsing Babe Ruth's home run record with the New York Yankees, he was a multi-sport star at Bishop Shanley High School in Fargo, North Dakota. On this day, Maris had himself a game, setting a national high school record in the process, although a new category had to be established much later to actually recognize it. Maris's Deacons were playing the Devil's Lake Satans, and the Devil's Lake coaches were not very quick learners. By the way, side note here, Devil's Lake changed its nickname to the Firebirds in 2002 after a bunch of, let's just call them oversensitive parents rallied to change the nickname after being the Satans for more than 80 years. Anyway, Maris took 2 kickoff returns back for touchdowns, one from 88 yards and another from 90. He added a punt return for touchdown, and that covered 45 yards. And he also picked off a Satan pass and scampered 25 yards for the pick 6. He finished off his night on offense with a 32-yard rushing touchdown in a 33-20 win over Devil's Lake. So, in essence, he scored all their points. Not bad for a good Catholic boy from Fargo. So, for the longest time, this story got a little bit skewed, with many reports in the years following saying that his 4 touchdowns came on kickoff returns, and he was listed as the record holder in that category. It was not until a little snooping and sleuthing by a sports writer from Indiana, Pennsylvania named Bob Fulton, who dug deep and discovered the punt and interception returns for TD. That led to a new record category being established to recognize Maris's feat of 4 returns for touchdown, not specifically kickoff returns. And that was done on this day in defeating the Satans. So on that same day, a little bit to the west, Los Angeles Ram quarterback Norm Van Brocklin lit up the scoreboard and added some extra ink to the stat sheet. So the 1951 season started off with a bang and ended with one too. A couple of things to know before I really get moving here. Los Angeles used a quarterback platoon system this season. Van Brocklin wasn't even the number 1. Bob Waterfield was. But Waterfield did not play in this game, and I couldn't find any particular reason. Waterfield did spend a large portion of his off-season just down the road in Hollywood, and he did some acting with Johnny Weissmuller in a Tarzan movie, but that probably had nothing to do with it. But his absence meant that it was all Van Brocklin's show on this day. The other thing to know is that the New York Yanks were horrible. The Yanks only lasted 2 seasons before they folded. So, with that as a backdrop, the table was set for Norm Van Brocklin to have a huge day. The Rams led 34-0 before New York knew what hit them. Van Brocklin threw 3 touchdown passes and ran for another to build the lead to 34-7 at the half, and the Rams kept pouring it on. He threw 2 more touchdown balls in the second half, and all totaled, he completed 27 passes for 554 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 54-14 romp. It could have been more, but he threw 2 interceptions as well. The 554 yards passing is still the most ever in an NFL game. He did get the start in the second game of the season, but the platoon system kicked back in, The Rams would use their 2 QB system to make it all the way to the championship game and beat the Cleveland Browns for the NFL title, the last one they'd win for 49 years. So on the same day that Norm Van Brocklin was throwing it all over the yard and Roger Maris is scoring 5 times, Allie Reynolds was setting them down in New York. Reynolds pitched the first game of a doubleheader for the Yankees against Boston on this day, and with just 4 games left in the season and starting the day with just a 3.5-game lead over Cleveland, the Yankees needed a strong outing from Reynolds, and he absolutely gave it to them. He only faced 30 Sox batters, just 3 over the minimum, struck out 9, walked 4, and did not allow a single hit. The Yankee bats gave him plenty of run support, and New York won 8-0. It was Reynolds' second no-hitter of the season. And with that, he became the first American League pitcher to throw 2 no-hitters in the same season and just the second in the majors after St. Louis's Johnny Vandermeer threw back-to-back no-nos in 1938. 4 other pitchers have done it since, the most recent being Max Scherzer in 2015. On this day in a couple of different years, Ted Williams had a pair of incredible moments. Let's start in 1941, and it's the final day of the regular season, and the Boston Red Sox have a doubleheader to play against the Philadelphia Athletics. Sox manager Joe Cronin knew the stats, and he knew what was on the line. It wasn't the team. They were well out of the pennant chase, 17 games behind the Yankees. No, he knew that Ted Williams was technically hitting .400. If you round it up, that is, which is how baseball historians and stat guys would see it. His average was .39955. So, rounded up, the 23-year-old Williams was hitting .400 for the season. And so he went to Ted and he said, "Hey man, you want to sit out the doubleheader?" Well, nobody would fault him, and history would still remember him as the last .400 hitter. But that was not how the splendid Splinter did things. He wanted to play the game. He didn't want to be the guy who hit .39955, and so he played. The Athletics started rookie Dick Fowler that day, so it wasn't a bad choice. The kid had only been called up a few weeks ago. He'd only pitched 19 innings in the majors coming into this one, and Williams feasted on Fowler. He picked up 4 hits in his 5 at-bats, plated 2 and scored twice in a 12-11 Boston win. At the end of the game, Williams had boosted his average to .404. Cronin didn't even bother asking Williams about the second game. That would have been pointless. In that second game, the A's went with another rookie late-season call-up in Fred Caligiuri. He'd pitched a few more innings, but he had not faced anybody like Williams yet. Most of the Red Sox bats, except for Ted's, were quiet in Game 2. Williams went 2 for 3 with a double and a 7-1 loss. But his last day performance, going 6 for 8 in the doubleheader, lifted his average to .406. He was the first major leaguer to hit .400 since 1930, when Bill Terry hit .401 for the Giants, and Williams was the first American leaguer to hit .400 since 1923, when Detroit's Harry Heilman hit .403. Ted Williams is still the last major leaguer to ever hit .400 for a season. So moving ahead to what happened on this day in 1960 for Ted Williams, it was a magical end to his incredible career. For the length of his baseball career and what he hoped would be his lasting legacy, Ted Williams wanted to be known as the greatest hitter to ever play the game. The man who became the first rookie to lead the league in RBI, the last man to hit .400, a 6-time batting champ, a career batting average of .344, and despite missing 3 full seasons to fly a fighter jet in World War II and missing large chunks of 2 more to do it again in Korea, he still hit 521 home runs. This was the final home game for the Red Sox in the 1960 season. All that remained after this game was a 3-game road trip to New York. Williams made a choice to sit out the last 3 road games and finish his career at Fenway Park. When he came to the plate in the 8th inning against Baltimore Orioles pitcher Jack Fisher and the Sox down 4-2, the Red Sox faithful knew they were watching the final at-bat in Ted Williams' incredible career. After a 2-minute standing ovation, he stepped into the box. Here's Red Sox announcer Curt Gowdy with a call from that day.
1-1 to Williams. Everybody quiet now here at Fenway Park after they gave him a standing ovation of 2 minutes. knowing that this is probably his last time at bat. 1 out, nobody on, last of the 8th inning. Jack Fisher into his windup. Here's the pitch. Williams swings, and there's a long drive to deep right. That ball is going, and it is gone. A home run for Ted Williams in his last time at bat in the Major League.
So Williams had a rocky relationship with the Boston fans for most of his career. Back in 1940, he struggled for a time at the plate. The local writers were hammering him in the papers and talking about his work ethic. The fans booed him. At that point, he made a vow to never acknowledge the crowd with a tip of the cap. But as he rounded third with the Red Sox crowd going nuts at what they'd just seen, he thought about doing it. But then reconsidered and continued his trot to home plate and the dugout. His 19-year career had come to an end in dramatic fashion. His career on-base percentage of .482 is still the greatest in Major League Baseball history. A couple of interesting things to close this story out. Williams flew with John Glenn in Korea. He was goose to Glenn's Maverick. And in 1991, when the Red Sox honored Ted Williams with Ted Williams Day, he finally relented and tipped his cap to the crowd. On this day in 1969, a quarterback described by Bill Walsh as the greatest talent to play the position, a man drafted 5th overall by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1969, a player who was possessed by the natural talents to play quarterback in the NFL, got injured. He was the greatest quarterback you've never heard of. As a senior at the University of Cincinnati, he led the nation in passing, and he had one memorable game against 17th-ranked Ohio when he threw for 550 yards. He was the top quarterback taken in that '69 NFL draft, and he was handed the starting job right after he reported to the team. His name was Greg Cook. Sam Weish was the backup to Cook to start the year, and he understood why this rookie phenom got the nod.
I don't think I was ever around a guy coming out of college that played as well as early in his career as Greg did, because he was big, he was 6'4 plus, he was 220 pounds, he could run like a running back, maybe not quite as fast as a running back, but he had those kind of athletic skills. And he had that little short stroke, that Terry Bradshaw kind of a throw where he just flipped the ball, the big meaty forehand and the big grip on the ball.
The Bengals had been an expansion team in 1968, and they had won only 3 games in their inaugural season. Through the first 3 games of their second season with Cook at the helm as the starter, the Bengals were undefeated. But a hit late in that 3rd game of the year against Kansas City proved to be a turning point for Cook and his career. He rolled to his left looking for a receiver to come free when Chiefs linebacker Jim Lynch hit him. Now, it was not a cheap shot or anything dirty. It was a good, hard tackle. But the hit injured Cook's shoulder, and he had to leave the game. He was sidelined for 4 weeks, and the Bengals were winless without him. In his return against the Oakland Raiders, the Bengals won again. He had the magic touch, it seemed. He finished out the rest of the year as the starter, and he earned AFL Rookie of the Year honors. But pain in his shoulder persisted. In the offseason, he consulted an orthopedic surgeon who had diagnosed his issue as a torn rotator cuff. He had 3 surgeries to try to correct the problem, which caused him to miss the entire 1970 season. Each time he went through the rehab process and then tried to get back into practice and throw the football, the pain came right back. He missed 3 straight years. He finally returned in 1973, played some mop-up duty in 1 game, completing 1 of his 3 pass attempts. He retired from football after that. The legendary Paul Brown was his coach in Cincinnati, and he said that the trajectory of the franchise would have been so much different if Cook had not gotten injured.
Big man, fast, tremendous arm, tremendous presence, everything. And he got hurt, and he was carrying us. He would have been our quarterback for 10, 12, 15 years if he wouldn't have been hurt.
This guy could have been a great player. He would have been one of the legends had his career carried on a normal course.
Cook tried to transition into a professional life after football, but he just wasn't happy doing it. He turned to art as a way of expressing himself, but that only went so far in satisfying that itch that just kept on bothering him. His good friend and former teammate Bob Trumpy said he lived a terrible life after football. His marriage disintegrated, and he wound up homeless, living in an abandoned warehouse.
He didn't want you to know the pain he was in. I don't think he wanted anybody to know. And he said, I'm embarrassed. And I said, you're embarrassed for what? And he said, I didn't fulfill everybody's dream. Their dream was I'd lead them to a Super Bowl. We'd win championships, and I didn't fulfill that dream. And I said, well, what about you? What was your dream? He said, it was my dream too.
The story of Greg Cook could have been so much different. His name among the greatest to ever play, perhaps, mixed in with Unitas, Bradshaw, Staubach, Montana, and Brady. Instead, his life took an unfortunate turn when he suffered his life-altering shoulder injury on this day in 1969. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Chinese sailor Poon Lim holds the record for the longest time spent adrift at sea at 133 days. His ship was torpedoed by the Germans during World War II. He managed to escape onto a life raft equipped with limited supplies. He crafted a fishing line, a knife from a tin can, and a water still to distill salt water. He was eventually rescued by a Brazilian fishing boat. That's all I've got for you today. This and every episode of This Day in Sports History is researched, written, voiced, and produced by me, Steve White. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.